Okay, hello everyone. We are back for our next session of the day, Offer Negotiation 101 for community managers. Nikki has graciously provided us with a negotiation preparation worksheet, which I have pinned to the chat, and you will actually need it for the session as well. So please feel free to take a look at that. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Nikki, so you have as much time to present on offer negotiations.
Sweet. Thank you so much. I already saw in the chat, there was a really great comment about just want to say livable wage and negotiation is a bad practice. Be honest about what role pays or the range, always posted on the job description. I would agree. That would be a really wonderful world to live in. And I love that Alan says that they don't apply unless they have that on the job description. And I love that. But sometimes it's not possible. And I think coming to these types of talks is really important to arm ourselves with the right tools in our toolbox to be able to negotiate properly. And negotiations aren't always for money. They can be a negotiation for who's going to make dinner or who's going to do the dishes. So I think negotiation applies in a lot of different ways, and it's not just about salary. But welcome to Offer Negotiation 101 for community managers. First off, I want to acknowledge you for coming out today. You had a choice between this and your ever-growing list of things at work, and you chose something for yourself, and that's huge. And in a world where we're so often focused on helping others win, congrats on choosing you today. A little bit about me. My name is Nikki Thibodeau. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the only person at Shopify who has been a community manager in a local city, led a global team of community managers, moved into community operations to help build and scale community at Shopify. And now I'm Shopify's first and only senior community strategist to further scale our efforts across our 10,000 plus person org and for our over 2 million merchants, which is what we call our customers. So I've had the pleasure of having a viewpoint from ground level to the 1,000 foot view. And not to mention, at the same time, I helped build and scale our internal community, the Women's Employee Resource Group, building community empowerment and psychological safety for women in the workplace. Okay, so to be honest, I don't always introduce myself like that, but we're talking about offer negotiation today. And it's important to be able to say with confidence what sets you apart from the rest. And in that intro, I told you that I'm a unique asset to a more than 10,000 person organization, and that we have a customer base of over 2 million, and that I care about empowering women in the workplace. So it's pretty valuable. I will be asking you to put some things in the chat, so make sure you have the chat ready. I will have time at the end for question and answer. So if you can see on your right-hand side of your screen in the chat, there's a chat. There's actually a live poll right now if you want to flick there. And then there's a Q&A. So please feel free to head that up. Also, a little caveat, I just moved into this place 2 days ago. And so it's pretty echoey because my stuff hasn't arrived yet. So apologies, but let's get into it. So what we're aiming that you'll walk out of here with today is understanding your communication style, some basic negotiation skills, and the worksheet, which honestly I think is probably the most valuable part. Learn how to consider an offer. So that's part of your negotiation skills. And we'll chat about what skills are transferable and valuable as a community manager. In negotiations, it's important to set the right tone and keep it throughout. And so let's talk a bit about different types of communication styles. And look, there are several different types of communicators, but for the sake of this presentation, we're going to talk about 3: passive, aggressive, and assertive. So I want to hear from you in the chat. Taking a look at this slide, there's passive, assertive, aggressive. Passive being too nice, doesn't speak up. Assertive is speaks firmly, acknowledges others. Aggressive is hostile, talks over people. Where do you think you naturally communicate from when you're trying to negotiate? I'd love to see it in the chat. In negotiations, I used to be aggressive. I thought it made me sound more sure of myself. I thought, and honestly, I would be very emotionally tied to the outcome usually and get really offended when folks didn't see my value. I see that Karina says that they are assertive. Hanifa says, I'm moving from passive to assertive. That happens a lot. Naya, assertive. Alan, used to be passive. Totally. Moving from aggressive to assertive. So as you can see, we can actually be all of these. And it depends on how prepared we are for negotiation. It depends on who's in the room. And it's okay to be on the spectrum. Assertive communicators are both confident and considerate. And these communicators are more likely to keep the discussion going and facilitate mutually beneficial outcomes. They adopt a strong, steady tone of voice. They are factual rather than emotional or critical. And you'll see here on this slide, I mentioned about posture and body language. And these are still very important in virtual settings. Because for me, it's actually an indication of how I'm feeling in that negotiation. So you may not be able to see, I know that when I talk, my hands go everywhere, but in a negotiation, you may not be able to see that my fists are balled up under the camera. So maybe you wouldn't think it would matter to the presenter, but for me, that tells me that I'm frustrated. Or if I'm feeling closed off, like if my arms are crossed, that means that I'm kind of unsure of myself, or I'm feeling on the defense. And I know that about myself. And so being able to know that about myself means that I'm able to course correct when needed. And I'd like you to ask yourself, how can you adapt to be more assertive? What would need to change? What stays the same? And if you have a pen and paper in front of you, I would just write that down. What would need to change? What stays the same to be more assertive? For me, to go from aggressive to assertive, the negotiation preparation sheet that Naya has pinned to the chat there, it's really helped me. And so I actually want to go through that negotiation prep sheet with you. So make sure you open it up and save a copy, because when we know what communication style we communicate from, that's a really great place to start. And then this is the juicy part. There are many reasons that we would prepare for a negotiation. As Moira Rose says, one must prepare for any event. I used to go into negotiations letting the other side lead. I would let them tell me what they wanted. I would let them wait to say what they were going to give me for it. And I would, in the moment, try and figure out if I was the right fit, and if I wanted to do the job, and if I was willing to do the job with the offer they gave me, which is wild to say out loud. But I think we often go into these discussions just thinking that we'll be able to understand and come up with arguments on the spot. But that's a train wreck. That is a train wreck waiting to happen, believe me. So I think this is the most valuable part of the session. You'll probably hear me say that a couple of times. You're walking out here with a negotiation preparation worksheet. The sheet is actually good for any type of negotiation. I personally don't love making dinner, and maybe I don't prepare a negotiation prep sheet, but I can think, okay, before I head into a meeting, what is my mutual purpose with my husband? What is my mutual purpose here? We both want dinner. Okay, I don't want to cook it. What value can I bring him in order so that he wants to make dinner? And then we can meet both in the middle there. But this sheet gets you to prepare the 4 keys to a successful negotiation. First step, mutual purpose. So think about it. When you get into a setting where there's going to be an ask, we often hold on to that ask until the very end. So if I was talking about with my husband, I would come into that meeting and I would say, I would like to talk about you making dinner tonight. What would you need from me to make that happen? Instead of being like, okay, honey, how about if I go grocery shopping, if I do this, if I feed our non-existent dog, and then can you make dinner? Then at the end, so trying to prove ourselves and our worth, and then swooping in at the last minute and that's why I'm looking for $10,000 above your initial offer. Now, everyone is caught off guard. And it makes the meeting take a turn. And instead, you want to figure out what everyone's mutual purpose is and get everyone to agree on it from the start. So the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss an offer. I will be looking for $10,000 over your initial offer, and I'd like to spend some time explaining more of my background and what benefits I would see myself having to the business. Are we all on board to proceed? There are so many benefits to getting that out on the table right away. First of all, that was the scary part, and now it's out of the way. And two, you could have a way more productive meeting. Everybody knows what to expect. And now you are building on top of your case instead of building up this case that's leading to a question mark, and then the question mark drops. And then they could say, I don't have $10,000 more to give you. And then you've just spent and wasted everybody's time. Whereas if they didn't have $10,000 more to give you on your prep sheet, you'll have some other things which will come up later. It'll be in number 3. I see that, Kate. Compromise. Let's order Chipotle. Yeah. I love a good burrito. Anyway, emotional triggers. I'm going to be honest. I used to try and avoid this part of the preparation at all costs. If I didn't acknowledge it, it's not there. If I don't acknowledge it, it's not there. That's not true. Not true at all. Now, it's actually one of my favorite parts of the worksheet, and I'm not kidding, because it's actually was my weakness, and it's now my strength. I'll write down the things that I know will trip me up, or topics that I want to avoid, and then I'll write down a sentence to navigate away from that topic. So we could actually understand our emotional triggers till the cows come home, but how are you going to get out of that when it comes up? So this sentence would all depend on what you're navigating from, but it could be something like, I don't think that's relevant to today's conversation. I'd like to get back to discussing my performance. And then you can actually say, let's put a pin in that, and I'd love to have a separate meeting with that. But now, then you get to go to the piece, or get the pieces done that are important in that meeting and carry on. Okay, must-haves. So when we think about salary negotiation or offer negotiation, we often think about getting the highest cash value or base salary. And look, I am not going to brush over that like it's not important. But I think you've heard the majority of the what to do on the money front. Things like you can ask your colleagues or folks with the same experience what they make. You can look at the open repository of community salaries from Community Club. CMX has an industry report. Do your research, cite your sources. It's not always about the money. Okay? I'll say that again. It is not always about the money. Maybe you're looking to work for a nonprofit, and realistically, they don't have the same budget as a for-profit, but make sure that you still value your skills, your time, and your growth. One time, I had spent weeks preparing a chat around base salary. I had nothing else prepared. I was just like, I am worth this. I'm going to get this. And then we got into the room, and the gentleman blankly said, Nikki, I don't have any leeway on the starting salary. I'm sorry. I was devastated. I had practiced saying that number in the mirror 1,000,000 times. And then we got in there and I said it, and he was like, no, what else? And I didn't have anything else prepared. But since then, I have learned to ask for other things too. So RSUs, extra days off, time. The biggest one for me was actually time to work on projects that would get me the development I wanted or in front of the right people. So you should have some of these things written down, ready for negotiation, and then absolutely understand what your walkaway point is. So in case you need to hear it, it is okay to value yourself. It is okay to be paid your worth, and it is okay to say, this isn't the right fit for me right now. Last, but certainly not least, are your skills. Know your numbers. If you look at the job posting, what is the business outcome? that you are going to influence in that role? Is it acquisition? Is it retention? Is it cross-sell, upsell? Know what they are looking for, and then tell them about your real experience to back it up. Okay, now I hear some of you saying, but I don't have any community experience. But that's okay. I got you. Skills pay the bills. I wrote this slide when I was on the road. I just did the road trip across Canada, and I thought this was really funny at the time. Anyway, I kept it in because I still think it's kind of funny. Take a look at this tweet from David Spinks. Community building, like every other skill, takes practice. Because it's so core to the human experience, we often look at it as some innate skill people should just have, but nope, it's just practice. Get your relationship building reps in. So if you're new to the world of community, does that mean that you don't have previous experience that's relevant to the role? If anyone tries to tell you that, laugh and walk away. Because we all build up core skills or transferable skills, and it's important to know what those skills are. So remember, it's like excellent ability to communicate clearly and collaboratively. Give real examples of these transferable skills. Problem-solving skills, you're a creative and can't leave something alone until it's fixed. An active learner's mentality, and you're comfortable asking for help. The ability to self-manage when it comes to time, organization, responsibilities. You have an eagerness to grow and develop new skills. And I'd argue that any great employee has these core skills. And if you have these, I'd be stoked. You can always learn community-specific nuance. Just be inquisitive. I actually love to tell the story of my husband. When we first met, he was doing a funeral transfer service jobs. That means he would pick up the deceased from where they were deceased, and he would take them to the funeral home. And he applied for a job in tech. And when we took a look at his transferable skills, he was going to be doing customer handling when they're in a heated area. Well, he was helping people on their worst day. And so we took the transferable skills from funeral transfer, and he got hired in tech. So if you have these transferable skills, communication, problem solving, active learning, you have the skills to be a community manager. This was a lot of information, so I'm going to recap what we've learned, but what I want you to think about are some questions, and then head to that Q&A tab, and we'll start them in just a minute. So we learned what type of communicators that we are and where we want to get to. We are armed with our negotiation prep skills and the worksheet. Please make sure you open that up. There's a pinned at the top of the chat, and you can fill it out before any negotiation, and then message me on LinkedIn and tell me how it went. Please, please, please. And then we wrapped on being able to understand what some core skills are. Thank you so much for taking the time for yourself today. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you how much more comfortable you were in your next negotiation. We will be heading to the Q&A into the Q&A. I am Nikki2987 everywhere. And in just a minute, I will pop over a slide, get your QR code scanners ready for C-Led has a course on negotiation. C-School is so great. I am in a course right now, and I love it. Okay, I don't see any questions. Let me scroll back up in the chat. Usually when there's no questions, I feel like people, the claps do it for me. Love including emotional triggers. Yep. Okay. MC says, should negotiations happen as soon as an offer is made, or should you schedule a follow-up after you've had time to review the written offer? So I'm going to should it happen as soon as an offer is made? If an offer is made right as soon as you're in the interview, I would always say that you'd want some time to think about it. And then you're going to be able to go away and think about it and schedule a separate follow-up. If they've sent the offer to your email, you'll schedule a follow-up. I think follow-ups are really important because then you can start the meeting going back to that mutual purpose. You can start the meeting with a mutual purpose in mind of today we're going to discuss and gather an outcome on the offer. I would like to talk about an offer increase of $10,000. Is that okay with you? Would you like to proceed? From Anonymous, how would you use negotiation in asking for a team? This is actually a really great question. When you're asking for further team members, what I like to do, a lot of us are teams of one. I'm very lucky to not be a team of one. But when you're looking to see reporting and metrics, I know this comes up in almost every session. We talk about what are the best metrics to report on and how do you get those metrics? Depends on a lot of things to do with your community specifically. But what I would do is I'd showcase the cost savings or the impact to business that another team member could have. So you'll want to be tracking your impact to the business. So for example, at Shopify, we have a bunch of different types of community. I work on the global community team, and we care about cross-sell, upsell. And so I want to be able to say, okay, with these programs that we've put on, I've been able to influence X amount of revenue in upsell. And if I had this other human, I could do X amount more. And so you just want to be able to come in and have all of your facts ready, do your research, cite your sources. You can talk to others in the industry, especially those who just grew their team. I would reach out in the Slack channel and just ask, hey, I'm trying to grow my team. Would anybody want to jump in and talk to me about it? And there are going to be so many people to help you out. Okay, and we just have a couple more minutes, but must negotiations be done on phone or can you email your negotiation? This is actually a really good question and something that I often include in this presentation, but I chose to leave it out today for time. So glad you asked the question, is preparation of time and place. And so time and place for negotiation is what works best for you. And so if someone says, hey, you need to get into a room, we're not going to negotiate over email, but you're not comfortable doing that, then that's not the right place for you. And so you need to make sure that you negotiate or you prepare the time and place that makes the most sense for you and your comfort, and while being flexible to the other side. But you want to make sure that you don't sacrifice your own comfort. I love the response you had on having to come back. Could you say that again? Sorry, Mila, I don't know what you are referencing. Maybe it's moving brain. Jessica asks, do you make the ask verbally in a meeting or do you give them heads up about your ask in an email while asking to discuss it via phone? This all depends. I don't think that there's any problem in sharing it either way. I personally like to send an invitation to discuss the offer, and I don't actually include what my ask will be because I like to have a lot of time to prepare that. And then in the meeting, once we get into the meeting, I can say, hey, this is what I want. And then they can come back to me and say, I only have up to X dollar, or I can't do that. And then I have them in the room. And then it's easier for me to have a back and forth instead of them just saying no. And so my advice would be not to put it into an email if you're willing to have a phone or a virtual conversation or in person. Linda said, Naya's got that one. Cool. Okay. That's it, friends. Thank you so much for coming today. I do see one more thing came in. I've been waiting for our fundraising round to close and to have a conversation about a raise. I asked to have the convo about 2 months ago, and my boss said I'd like the number post better post-funding, but funding has been dragged on. How do I prep a number for that raise if he asks me first? Like, how do I know what is an appropriate offer? Sorry, I'm not going to read it. Something else came in and I lost it. But what I want to say is this actually happened to me very recently. I got a promotion, but it wasn't a promotion. We just like changed my title and my focus was just shifted. And so I said to my boss's boss, hey, can I ask for a salary increase? And she said, hey, I'm working on it, kind of in the background. And then it just kind of got shuffled. And she was working on it, but I didn't see any of that. And so what I did was I did my research about what other people with my skills, my time in community, my job title, and the job level, what kinds of salary I should be able to expect. And so then when they came with that number, which did actually happen about 2 months later, I was able to say, actually, what I would like to have a conversation about it being a little bit higher. And that actually went really positively for me because I had already done my research and I felt very comfortable in the number that I had set previously. And then know your walkaway number. Like, if you're already in the role, like this is what I said to my husband. I was like, look, I had nothing to lose. They're not going to fire me for asking for more money. Well, I had that privilege, but I'm still going to get a raise. But if it's not what I think there's a good thing that happens when you do the research and you can see what else is out there. And so I would just wait. I would prepare now, and then when he comes to you, and you can still send some reminders and say, hey, it's actually been too long since the funding round. Could we work on something now? But yeah. Shannon brought up a good point in the chat, asking for a signing bonus. I've never had one at a company. What type of company size offers those? I'm going to be honest. I don't know that there is a size of company that offers those. I would just ask, is there a signing bonus available? And I know that tech companies do it a lot. I'm in tech, and so I kind of have that purview. But I would honestly just ask at any point, especially if the base salary that you want isn't going to be able to be met. You could offer, instead of it being like days off or time to work on a project, you could say, hey, can I have a one-time signing bonus? Do you recommend asking for a certain percentage over your minimum? I recommend doing your research and knowing what your worth is. And then the percentage over, I don't have a percentage. I like to come with the facts and say, I'm looking for 90K or whatever the number is. I'm looking for this, and it's a research number. And I'm not trying to negotiate with you up or down. Like, if there's a scale that you can come up with and you can go on the higher end of the scale, I would definitely recommend that. But I wouldn't play too much of a game because I would want you to come in feeling really comfortable with the value that you put forward. Anyway, that is all the time I have. Thank you so much. Slide into my LinkedIn DMs anytime. And thanks so much for coming for yourself today.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for this amazing presentation and for all of the insight that you've shared. This has been incredibly helpful. Please use that worksheet. It is still pinned to the chat and you will have access to it indefinitely. But we do now have our last 5-minute break of the day before we go into our final session, creating community OKRs, which I'm incredibly excited for this fireside chat. So stay tuned, 5 minutes. Run for your last bathroom break, phone break, pop into a session, take a picture in the photo booth. We'll see you here again on stage in another 5 minutes. Thanks so much, Nikki.
Thank you.